know the fastest way to make sure your child, or honestly, maybe your fellow American, won't admit they messed up or acted in a way that they regret? Just say, I told you so. Or maybe, if you'd just listened to me, this never would have happened. Feels good to say in the moment sometimes if we're being honest, right? But if what you really want is influence and collaboration with either your kids or anybody in life, if you want to raise a child who grows through mistakes instead of hiding them, and if you want to be the kind of person who inspires reflection, not resistance, then this video is for you. But before we dive in, please hit subscribe below if you are excited to learn firm and kind, connection-based parenting strategies that help you raise strong, emotionally healthy kids, but also really empowers you to show up in a way that you're proud of in all areas of your life. So let's start with this phrase that's easy to say, but almost always backfires. I told you so, or if you had just listened to me. Now, yes, sometimes we were right. We did see it coming. We did warn them. But here's the thing. Being right doesn't make you influential. It doesn't make you trusted. It doesn't help the person in front of you actually learn and grow. Because I told you shuts the door on reflection. It activates the brain's defense system. And here's why. When someone hears, I told you so, their amygdala lights up. That back part of the brain, that's really our brain's alarm bell. It pushes them out of their learning brain, which is the prefrontal cortex, and drops them into survival mode, which means they're now in flight, fight, freeze, or fawn. They're not hearing wisdom, and they're definitely more likely to be hearing threat. And what happens is they become not open to change. And really, they're scrambling to protect themselves. So when we use I told you so, we think we're helping, but we're actually slamming the door shut. So here's a story with my own daughter that might help kind of drive this lesson home. When Stella was 7, she saved up her money to buy this reindeer from the Elf on the Shelf collection, and she loved that thing. It was like her treasure. But we had a puppy, Herbie. He was a total chew monster. So I said, Stella, keep your reindeer up high. Herbie's gonna chew it, sweetheart. And I must have said it a dozen times. But sure enough, one morning she came to me crying. Herbie had chewed off the leg and an ear. She was devastated. And every part of me wanted to say I told you so or run to Target and just buy her a new one to fix it. But instead, I let life do the teaching. I held her and said, sweetheart, I can see how much this hurts. Then we pulled out my sewing kit, we stitched the leg, we trimmed the ears to make them even, and we put a little bandage on the knee. And then I taught her about the nonprofit organization Wounded Warriors and said, sweetheart, your reindeer is like a wounded warrior now. Still beautiful, even more special because you took care of him. And honestly, she never left a toy on the ground again that got chewed up by a puppy. Not because I punished or shamed her with an I told you so, but because instead she had learned. So have you ever been on the receiving end of an I told you so? Maybe it was a spouse or a colleague or a parent, but did it make you reflect? No, it made you probably want to retreat because people don't change when they feel cornered. They change when they feel safe. And so that's where influence really begins, both with our kids and anybody in our life. So let's talk about discipline for a minute because this is really interconnected. Discipline is not punishment. It's not guilt trips. It's not domination. And what I teach here at Fresh Start Family is discipline that unites. Discipline that builds connection, not fear. And it starts with one of the most powerful tools that we have as parents, and that is natural consequences, which let life do the teaching. So for example, if your child leaves their bike in the rain and it rusts, maybe you let that rust spot do the teaching. Or if they get a bad grade on a test, you let the grade teach, not your shame. If they say something unkind and don't get invited to a sleepover, let that disconnection teach. Our job isn't to pile on guilt, it's to sit beside them and ask, what did you learn and what can you do next time? So this does work with adults too. Okay, so say you have a partner who hasn't listened to you in the past and then something happens and you're tempted to say, I told you so, but instead you can say, I'm grateful we're aligned now. Or you have a friend that maybe is seeing the atrocities happen in the world or our nation and all of a sudden it's affecting them. So they start to admit that maybe there's a problem. Instead of saying, I told you so, didn't you see this coming? You can just say, I'm grateful that we're on the same page now. I'm grateful that you're speaking out. Maybe we can even work together to make a difference. Shame builds walls. Empathy builds bridges. So here are some common punishment traps that I want you to stay away from. Sarcasm. Things like, wow, you couldn't have seen that coming, or lectures, or guilt trips. Something like, if you cared about this family or if you cared about this nation, you would have done your research. These don't teach. They just hurt and create disconnection and division. So instead, I want you to say things like, what do you think needs to happen next time? Or how might you repair this? Or what can you try differently next, maybe tomorrow or next time, right? I want you to support without rescuing. You can say things like, I'm here for you. I'm not going to fix it, but I'll sit with you and walk through what you can do next. That's discipline that unites. And if you want help with exactly what to say when a mistake happens, I want you to click below and grab our free Compassionate Discipline Learning Guide. It comes with a ton of free education that's really going to help you. All right, so what do we say instead of, I told you so? And what do we say? Let's start with like maybe a kid who has lied or really shut down or totally has denied what's happening. Here are some go-to phrases that open the door to accountability without shame. So let's start with kids. Maybe you have a kid who has lied. I want you to try saying something like this. What was going on for you in that moment that made it so hard to tell the truth? I'm really happy that you told me now. But let's talk about that moment, because I want to help you feel empowered to do it differently next time. Or something like this. It's okay to make mistakes. I've made plenty in my lifetime. It is safe to be honest here. Or say you've told your child a million times to wear their shoes, but they don't, and then they scrape their toes. You can say something like, oof, that hurts. What can you do next time so you don't stub your toe while you're riding a scooter? Okay? Maybe you have a child who, again, gets excluded from a play date because they've done something unkind or maybe been super bossy with their friends. Instead of saying, I told you so, you can just say, that hurts. That probably feels really, really yucky. What can you do to change how you engage in your relationships with your friends so you get invited back next time? So let's do some when it comes to adults. When someone admits fault or comes to the table and says, oh, I see now that things are really compromised or a problem, instead of saying, I told you so, or I can't believe you didn't see the writing on the wall, try this. I really appreciate your honesty. That's not easy to do. And thank you for taking responsibility. It means a lot. When someone shifts their perspective, either socially or politically or relationally, you can say something like, I'm so grateful that we're seeing things in the same way now. Maybe we can even work together to help more people understand this. When they're still defensive, but maybe inching towards awareness, you can say something like this. I can tell you're thinking about this. I'm here for conversations when you're ready or if you want to talk more about it. When a friend or a loved one causes harm, maybe unintentionally, you can say this. I know that wasn't your intention, but here's how it impacted me. I believe you care enough to grow from this. Okay, and a few universal reframes that might help you too. You can say something like, hey, mistakes are opportunities to learn, not proof that you're bad or that I'm mad at you. Or what matters most is what we do next. Or for kids, this is a great one. You're not in trouble. You're just figuring out how to do this thing we call life. These phrases preserve dignity while still teaching and influencing. They keep hearts soft, minds open, and relationships strong. So the next time you are tempted to say, I told you so, try one of these instead. Let connection lead instead of correction. And let truth come with tenderness and humility. And let your words build bridges that last, okay? Before you go, don't forget, click below to grab that free Quick Start Learning Bundle where you are going to get instant access to simple, powerful tools that help you handle those discipline moments with confidence, clarity, and connection instead of superiority and dominance and disgust and judgment. And if this video supported you today, please hit subscribe so you don't miss our weekly tools, stories, and firm and kind connection-based parenting guidance. You've got this, families. I am cheering you on, and I'll see you back for our next video very soon.